Wonderful. I will not keep you long, so don't worry. It's now 8:33. See if I can get you out in 10 minutes, all right? TT, how are you? Where's Tyrone? And Tyrone and Tyler. Tyler, where's Tyler? And Tyler and don't worry, I'm learning names. I'll get the names. Tyler and what's your name again? I'm to guess. Why are you laughing at me? Started. K. Kyle. Yes. Tyler and Kyle. Yes, I'll remember now. Tyler and Kyle and TT. All right. So, we're going to start at slide 31, okay? That's what we're going to do, slide 31. And so, what we want to use this presentation to build the backdrop for the presentations to come, because we're going to dive now into Revelation for the others to come. For the platform to dive into Revelation, we're going to look at Daniel chapter 8 in the first part tomorrow, and then the others we're going to do Revelations 1, 2, and so forth, and dive further into Revelation in the coming week. Is that clear? But to do that, we have to set the platform for this presentation that will be the basis for Revelation. One, okay, all right, so he says 4. Is he correct? All right, you're going to get F for the course, all right? You're getting F for the course. So 4 kingdoms. So I need 4 persons to come up here, 4 individuals to come up here. Four of you come up here. All right. We have 4. All right, come right here. I'm going to line up right here. So the first kingdom, since Daniel had that interpretation of the dream Nebuchadnezzar had, what was the first kingdom? Representing what? All right. The second kingdom was what? Silver representing? Okay, awesome. The third one was what? Representing? Greece. The fourth was what? Iron. Representing? And then you had the divided kingdom of iron and clay, right? All right. So you had what? Then you have? Okay. Then you have? One more time. Awesome. But in Daniel 7, we find different symbols representing the 4 kingdoms, right? So the question now is, what beast did God choose to represent the kingdom of Babylon in chapter 7? What represented? Lion. Awesome. For Daniel 7 tells us that it was a lion. So in this case, it's no longer a goal, but what? An animal. But it represents the same kingdom. Then we have what? What represented Media Persia? Bear. Awesome, awesome. Then we have, what was the third kingdom? What represented the third kingdom? Yes, say it again, Kyle.
The four-headed leopard with four eagle wings.
Awesome, awesome. He's getting F for the course. And then we saw where Rome went away, right? Just as how it is in the prophecy, Rome disintegrated. Yes? So, we know what Babylon looks like, right? We know what Media Persia looks like. And we know what Greece looks like. All right. Awesome. How many heads did Greece have again, the leopard? You remember why we say it had 4 heads? 4 generals that Alexander the Great had. Right. Thank you very much. You may have a seat. Give him a hand. You can, for your participation, collect a gift from Brother Green, all right? So you know what the 3 kingdoms look like. But in Daniel chapter 7, what represented the 4th beast? He says he saw a beast that was dreadful, terrible. With what kind of teeth? In Daniel 7, what Rome represented? What metal? And this beast had what? Iron what? Iron teeth. But notice now in Daniel 7, we find where after we have the legs of iron, what came after the legs of iron? What we have? Feet of iron and clay. But it's not a kingdom, right? Because Rome was the last kingdom, right? But we have iron and clay. In that image of the feet being iron and of clay, what does that tell you when it says iron and clay? Anybody can tell me something from that? What does it say? Iron and clay cannot mix together, yes. Anything else? Rome is still evident. You get that picture? Because the iron is still there, right? So the iron is still in existence, but it's fragmented. You get that picture? So the last empire of iron, which is Rome, we're going to find as we step further into the prophecies, it still exists today. That's the point I'm making. So until Jesus comes, Rome still exists, but not as an empire, not as a ruling power, as an empire, but as what we classify as papacy. As what? So the iron represented pagan Rome. Represented what? For the small ones, when we talk about pagan Rome, we are speaking of the empire of Rome. We're speaking of what? Controlled by the government. Controlled by what? So here is the government of Rome by the various empires. Nero, Augustus, Diocletian, Constantine, and Lysianus. All these people were rulers of Rome. And so under their control, Rome is called what? Pagan Rome. You get that picture? What is pagan Rome? What is pagan Rome? The political Rome under the government system. You get that picture? Now, I shared with you the last time that there were 2 co-regent empires in Rome, who were the two co-regent empires? Constantine and Lysinus. Constantine and Lysinus. All right, so let me pause a little bit. I'm coming back to that. Anybody did the homework? We talk about the beer. The beer was lopsided, right? I told you to look up the lopsidedness of the beer. So the beer had one shoulder higher than the other. The beer represented what again? Media Persia. All right, good. You're getting F for the course. All right, so why was the beer lopsided? And we say it's lopsided because one was stronger than the other. And the assignment I gave you was, which was stronger? Huh? Who said Medes? Who said Medes? You said Medes? Who said Persia? You said Persia? All right, so you're right and you're not wrong. All right, so you're right and you're not wrong. So the Medes were the dominant empire. Who were the dominant empire? But Cyrus, who was a Persian, conquered the Medes, galvanized and conquered who? The Medes. And when they were conquered, he united the Medes and the Persians together. And now the Persians were now the dominant ones. Huh? So when he united it, who now became the dominant one? The Persians. Who was dominant before? Medes. But then when Cyrus controlled now and united the two together, which side was his dominant one now? The Persians, all right? So what about the ribs in the mouth? Nations that are conquered. What? We have some brilliant students here, man. All right. Anybody agree with him? You sure? So you agree with him. That means you know the three nations that were conquered. Well, let me give it away a little bit. How many nations were conquered? Yeah, can't be telling you, not sure. Oh, you know it? What were the three nations? Huh? Babylon, Egypt, what else? Lydia. All right, so Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt. Those were the terrains of Medo-Persian Empire, because they went in and they conquered Babylon, captured Lydia, captured Egypt, and stretch out themselves as a great empire. All right? So you're getting there, you're getting there. And so we're going back now to Rome, because Babylon came off the scene, Medo-Persia came off the scene, Greece came off the scene. Is that clear? So we are in the period of Rome. We were in Rome. Note now, how many horns did Rome have, the kingdom have? 10 horns. The kingdom, when it was divided, the feet of iron and clay, how many toes it have? How many toes? Not 10 toes? Yes. 10 toes. And the horn has how many toes? How many horns again? 10 horns. All right. Now, and we did share the last time the identification marks of that, and we did say that with the 10 horns were there, and then there's a little horn that came up amongst the 10 horns, right? And while the little horn was coming up, so here's this beast that has 10 horns, right? And as it was, and then there was a little horn that was shooting up, just like you have a plant coming up to the ground, right? And as the little horn was shooting up, what happened? It plucked out 3 horns. So 3 of the horns came out. 3 of the horns, the what? While it was coming up. And this little horn now became a great horn, became big, right? So it's no longer a little horn. And start to speak great things against God and make war with the saints. And, you know, we listed those identifying marks last time out. Right? And what we find is that the same identification marks of this little horn in Daniel 7 were the same identification marks of the beast found in Revelation 13. Is that clear? Right. So it means that it's one and the same. One and the... And then now, this little horn represents now not the Rome as pagan Rome, but Rome as the papacy. Rome as a... The beast itself represented Rome as pagan Rome. What we said is pagan Rome again? Political Rome, governed by the government. So Rome as a government with the empires. Is that clear? But then now, remember last time I told you now that Rome started to disintegrate because the barbarian tribes came in. And when the barbarian tribes came in, there were some struggles and Rome started to deplete. And nobody could fill the gap. Who came? When I said nobody could fill the gap, there was no ruling empire to fill the gap. They didn't have any government official to fill the gap. So who stepped in and filled the gap? The church. Why the church came and filled the gap? Give them authority, because the church had a little bit of influence in the government, because they were a little bit a part of the government. And the name was changed from the Catholic Church to what? The Roman Catholic Church. So when they came and filled the void, that's now what we call the papacy. We call papal Rome. We call what? Under the government system, we call it what? Pagan Rome. But when it's controlled by the church, it's called what? Papal Rome. All right, you get it. So the beast that you saw in Daniel 7 represents what? Pagan Rome. But then the little horn that comes up represents what? Papal Rome. You get that picture? So after Rome was no more, then the little horn took control. You get that? All right. Just as in the feet of iron and clay, what you have, the legs of iron was no more, and then the feet of iron and clay stepped in. What you have in the feet of iron and clay? You have what? Iron and clay. A little bit of Rome still exists. So just in Daniel 7, a little bit of Rome exists. Here's where I want to take you as we wrap this up, and then we stretch it go into the lesson for tomorrow. Follow me carefully now. So, Rome still do what? Exists what? Today. Rome still what? Exists what? How does Rome exist? Through what? Through what? Papacy, through papal Rome. Now, I wanted to note before we close, I said it last time, but I just want to reinforce it because this is a platform for the studies to come. Is that when pagan Rome was in control, they persecuted the church. So, started with Nero. Nero wanted to get rid of the Christians, couldn't find a way to get rid of the Christians because he recognized the Christians were growing in popularity and people seemed to be loving the Christians. And so he found a way to get rid of them. So what the history books will tell you, that you heard about the burning of Rome, right? In AD 70. If you check the books will tell you that it's Nero who orchestrated it himself, and then blame it on the Christians. And when he blamed it on the Christians, what do you think happened now? He ordered the crusade now to go and kill all the Christians. And what happened? The Christians grow. And then the other empires came, and the same thing happened as I shared with you last time. But then when papal Rome came in, which is a church, which is a, remember they were persecuted by what? Pagan Rome. But when the church came in, what do you think happened? The church was now persecuting its own people. You get that picture? And under the church, the Christians had some very rough times. Can you imagine, just as you said, when it should be the church that really stands up and protects its own, right? Huh? The word? Yes, yes. Because people were standing up for what? Principle, standing up for what? And so, because they were standing up, there were segregation. There were what? And then you have different denominations. You have what? Different? And that is why the different denominations are called what? Protestant, because they're protesting what happened during that time. Is that clear? All right. All right. So this is building now up for tomorrow. And when we get into Revelation, when we get into what? So read Daniel chapter 8 for the first presentation for tomorrow. Daniel chapter. And then we wanted to get into now that Revelation chapters 1, 2, and further down in Revelation. Just read Revelation. Because we're not going to go like Daniel chapter for chapter for Revelation. We're just going to go through Revelation with some prophecies for the next week. Is that clear? So what you're going to read for tomorrow morning? Daniel 8. And then you're going to read what? What you're going to read for Revelation? All of Revelation. You're going to start at 1, 2, but just read Revelation. What are you going to do? Read through Revelation. All right. Amazing. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So thank you very much. I'll send you home. Brother Grant, it's good to see you. Good to see you. I invite you all to stand as we pray. Tomorrow,